We didn't talk about any of this today yet, did we? Oh my goodness. Oh, it's like Christmas has come early. 2 chapters in one day. Oh, yes. That's like finding 2 fruit bowls in one box. It is a good day. We're on section 1, chapter 4, the conquest of the Americas. We're going to be talking about gold. We're talking about dudes spreading Christianity in a boat. We're going to talk about human sacrifice. It is on! I'm just very excited to talk about this today. I mean, what, dude, the Taino? Yes. Oh, it's so good. We already answered that. It's the conquest of where? Is it Britain? No. Is it Russia? No. It's America. Right. So Columbus in 1492 he did what? He did that thing. And then he got in his little boat. He was driving across the Atlantic, and his men were like, "Nah, Columbus, there ain't nothing out here. We're running out of food. We are going to kill you. We're going to steal your boat." He was like, "Come on, bro. Don't tase me, bro. This is going to be cool. Trust me. We're going to hit China." And then some dude from the top of the mast goes, "Oi! There's land that way." And he's like, "See, bro, we made China." So they come across these beads, and they're like, "We made China." These guys are Chinese. Does anyone understand what they're saying? No. Yo hablo inglés? No? Well, they must be Indian then. We must have hit the Indies. You know, these islands right along in here. No. We don't want any of your feathers or anything like that. Oh, you have gold with you. Fascinating. So Columbus has to go back. And he tries 3 more times to find China. And he fails. Then he ends up being made a governor, where he is so bad at his job and so abusive that his own subjects write back to the king saying, "Dude, this guy's crazy. You gotta get rid of him." And so he never does do what he tries to set up to do. Now, what is Columbus's big mistake? Why does he fail so hard? Is it because he went the wrong way? Is it because he wore a stupid hat? No. It's because he thinks that the earth is small. He thinks it's smaller than it actually is. And people are telling him, "Dude, no, it's a big world, dude. You can't just sail to nothing." So when he goes that direction, he's actually lucky he runs into the where? Because without that, they would have run out of supplies. Either A, all starved to death, or B, he would have been mutinied on and killed by his own men. Now, what happens to the Taino? Well, this is the first tribe that was encountered by Europeans, at least first tribe by Europeans in the quote-unquote modern times. See, the Vikings had been there a long time ago, going way farther north. So technically speaking, this isn't the first European contact, but it's the one that really sets everything. The Taino are exterminated. Every single one of them dies. We thought. Until about maybe 10 years ago. It was discovered through genetic testing that some Taino had survived by interbreeding with other tribes. The rest of them died off to a combination of European enslavement, overwork, and disease. You see, gold is kind of hard to come by. Gold is under the ground. Unless you get lucky and you have a river that flows out of these gold mine areas, and you can pan for it, but that's not how you get lots of gold at one time. So it needs lots of labor. And so, in order to get this labor, the Europeans enslaved the people and forced them to work. Now, this is going to be pretty par for the course. As we see the colonists start to settle this area, natives are the first to be enslaved and the first to die off to diseases and other forms of aggression. But this brings a very interesting point. See, the Taino were kind of small. When we start talking about the conquistadors, like Hernando Cortez, or Hernando Cortez, how do you pronounce that? I should spell both ways, I really don't know. So I just call him Cortez. And Pizarro. How are they successful at conquering a nation of hundreds of thousands of warriors that are just really tough dudes? Whatever, you got 600 dudes and the boats, one cannon. How is that numerically possible? What advantages do the Europeans have? Well, first, the one they didn't expect was disease. We were talking about that, smallpox and other things like that. What else? What else do the Europeans have that the natives don't? Yeah. Right, what kind of weapons they got? They have one cannon. But what else? They have guns, yeah? And they also have steel at their disposal. It's sometimes weird to think about, but the Aztec are a Stone Age technology level. They're using stone weapons, but they're slightly more advanced than what you might be thinking when I say stone weapon. Like, it's not just a rock on a stick makes a club. These guys are using things that are sword clubs, which seems like a really stupid ornament, or I forget the word, the middle words, but it actually is a really cool weapon. They have these things called, I believe they're called the quetzal, which is this big wooden paddle with shards of obsidian placed along the edge. Now, obsidian, you guys know what obsidian is? It's kind of volcanic glass. It's actually sharper than scalpels. Like, we've measured it with micron or atomic microscopes. They're thinner than that. So these things are ridiculously sharp, and they put on this giant paddle type thing. So it basically makes like a wood and stone chainsaw. How devastating is an attack from a quetzal? Well, it just so happens on a TV show called Deadliest Warrior that ran on Spike. It's not Netflix, by the way. They tested one of these that someone had made a reproduction of against an analog. Now here's the story. Cortez and his men brought horses. And when they brought these horses, they faced off against the feared jaguar warriors of the Aztec tribe. And allegedly, one of these jaguar warriors decapitated one of Cortez's horses with a quetzal. So they were like, is this really possible? Because, I mean, a horse has thick neck bones, right? Big muscle. That seems like a really tall order for a stone and wood weapon. So they built one. They built a horse head out of fake bone and this ballistics gel flesh, and then make it extra gory. They put like these veins through it with blood in it, whatever. And so they gave this weapon to this dude. Said, all right, chop the horse's head off if you can. He did it. He seriously did it. So that's totally plausible. Could have happened. So we're talking, you know, these guys are Stone Age, but they're advanced Stone Age. But steel is not going to be cut by these weapons, yeah? So you got these guys with these really powerful weapons, hit a dude, and he's just kind of like, whatever, and levels his gun at somebody and go out. That's the other thing to understand. Guns are dangerous, but these are old-fashioned guns. They're matchlocks, which means to say, instead of using like a primer, blasting cap sort of bullet we think of today, you load the gun from the front, pour in the black powder and the bullet in, and then you load a pan, shut it, and then you've got this cord of burning fiber that you have to blow on so it gets really hot. Then you stick it in the gun, and then you pull the trigger, and what happens when you pull the trigger is this little hand sort of shape type thing holds the match and puts it in the pan so powder ignites lighting the gun. It's really a finicky system. And trust me, if you're on the business end of one of these things, it'll kill you. But it's also really slow to fire. But the thing of it is, they had never encountered guns in the New World at this point. So what they have are these weapons that look to them like really fat sticks that you point at someone and a fireball comes out and this giant cloud of smoke and a thunderous noise and someone dies. They're like telling stories like these dudes are carrying dragons around, right? You know, that'd be terrifying. This would be like aliens landing on our planet and showing up with these weapons that throw bolts of lightning. You know? Or like fire a miniature black hole and implode. It's like beyond our reasoning of how to do. So this is something that scares the hell out of people. And psychological warfare, plus the fact that these diseases are spreading, means that people are dying by the thousands. The other thing, and one of the main contributors to this, though, isn't just all this stuff, but also we have to understand what we say when we say the Aztec. The Aztec are a tribe. The Aztec Empire is the empire of the Aztec that includes multiple different tribes. You can see the area of allied states, core states, is orange. This area right near to Tenochtitlan, that's all we're talking about. We're talking about Aztec. Everybody else is not Aztec. And so, when Cortez and his men land, they're like, anybody know where there's some gold? But that's what we want. We want gold. And you should become Christian because that's cool. And they meet with this one group, and this woman is able to figure out Spanish. I believe she learned some of it from a missionary. I forget exactly how she knew Spanish. But she was able to communicate with them. Her name was Marisha. And so they're like, she can clearly see these dudes are warriors. They're decked out with weapons. It's a small army. And they're asking for gold. She's like, I know where there's some gold. I'll show you exactly right this way, and leads them to the capital of the Aztec, the people who had enslaved her tribe. So it's going to go down, right? Because Malinche is all like, you see, I don't think these guys are necessarily going to be able to beat the Aztec and destroy them, but they're probably going to weaken their army to the point, now our tribe can escape, right? She has no idea what to expect. Because Cortez's men not only take the city, they hold it from the Aztec for a while until they loot it of all its gold and then proceed to just destroy army after army, spreading like just nobody's business, right? My metaphors are failing me. So they end up going through this entire area and conquering all of it, all of Mexico. Furthermore, other conquistadors are coming. They spread and they conquer all of South America except for this one little part. Why did they not conquer all of South America? You guys know? Because they signed a treaty. With who? Well, they're the Spanish. And Cortez and Pizarro are Spanish. The Portuguese, why? Who made them sign it? The Pope! Because the Portuguese are like, Spain, that's all ours, dude. And they're like, bro, we found it. It's ours. And so they're like, no, man, it's like, what you gonna do? Bop me one? Oh, yeah. It's coming. Right now. And so the Pope's like, guys, chill. Oh, and I imagine the Pope kind of talks like someone's fussy grandmom. So they're like, no, boy, there's plenty for you to share. Here, let me cut it in half for you. And in Portugal, because they're like 5, like, but Graham, his side's bigger than mine. Okay, sweetie, we'll move on just a little bit and there is everyone happy now. And World War is avoided. Hooray for that. Now the natives are just kind of like, what? This is our country, you jerks. Whatever, we'll be in a second. This is important. Danny's talking. So they divide the line at Treaty of Tordesillas, which is created by the line of demarcation. By the way, this is the city of Tenochtitlan. Guys, this is pretty cool, actually. Right? So this is a floating city. It's on rafts. It's in the middle of Lake Texcoco with a centralized pyramid. So Cortez is like, I'm going to get me some of that. The thing of it is, though, is even with all this, the Spanish can't just go massacring people. That's not okay. There's that little problem. In Christianity, there's that law about not killing people. So it's not like Cortez can be like, yo, check it. I'm totally going to murder all these people. We're taking all their stuff. It's going to be awesome. The king would read back and be like, did we hire a crazy person to lead this? What's wrong? Arrest him. This will not do. Remember, their objective is gold, sure, but there's another big objective. God. They're trying to save their souls, yeah? Now, let's be honest, they're also motivated mostly by greed, so they really just kind of want to kill the natives and take all their stuff, but they still technically have to offer them the chance to become a Christian. So every city they come to, they're supposed to open up this scroll and read to them, and basically says, hey guys, you need to convert to Christianity. It'll save your souls. It'll totally be cool. But if you don't, you forfeit everything to us. We'll get all your stuff, and we'll convert you by the sword if necessary. Right? So they read this in Spanish, which no one speaks. So they're like, no one's coming to be saved. I guess we got to kill them, take all their stuff. And that's what they did. Except not always, because sometimes when they're about to attack another army, they'd be like, we can't go reading the scroll, we'll give away our element of surprise. We'll just assume they said no. But this is the motivation. Another thing is they had to play up the people's sympathies back home, because the thing of it is the people back home in Spain here, you guys are just slaughtering the natives. Those poor natives? Why do you have to be so mean to them? So they have to sort of sell this back home. So they go, oh, no, we're saving them from themselves. These people are they are sacrificing their own people to their dark gods. We have to save them from themselves. Really? That's happening? Oh, yeah. All the time. Really? Oh, yeah, dude, last night, 100,000. 100,000 people were sacrificed. Now, here's the thing, is this isn't a letter, not quite that wording exactly, although that would be hilarious, from Cortez to the King of Spain, Charles V, basically stating that in one night in Tenochtitlan, 100,000 people are sacrificed. Now think about this for a second. Let's do the math for a second. There's only so many hours in one night, yeah? 100,000 is a lot. I mean, if I was going to say, here's a gummy bear, right? I want you to put it on a toothpick, right? You're going to make a nice little candy shish kebab to enjoy later. That'd be delicious, right? You did great. You did a great job. Here's 100,000. Have fun. You're probably not going to get done in one night. You know? That's going to take a really long time. And by the way, you're not ritualistically making them into kebabs. There's none of that going on. So this is clearly an over-exaggeration. Why? Because, again, Cortez is trying to sell this idea of these people are brutal and mean. Now, did they sacrifice people? Oh, you bet they did. Women, children, doesn't matter. They sacrificed people. But the thing is, from their perspective, they weren't even Aztec. And that seems like a weird thing to say, but to them, if you're not Aztec, you're not really human. And this is a commonly held mindset of tribal societies. If you're not part of our tribe, you're not really human. So we can do whatever we want to. And even with that, it didn't happen as often as you'd expect. So this is something that we as historians kind of have to deal with, because the only documents we have of it are basically physical evidence in people's lives. And so physical evidence, as we open up these pyramids and look into what happens, one of the kind of weirder things is whenever you sacrifice somebody on a temple, you would actually keep their skull. And what they did is they kept them in racks. So it was like an abacus. You might call it skull racks. And the thing of it is that they would do this over time. So when the first explorers found these things, dude, they're sacrificing a ton of people here. Look at all these skulls. But that was over the entire lifetime of the pyramid. So, again, not to say it didn't happen. I mean, it was a brutal lifestyle. It's a brutal time to be alive, but it's not as bad as we maybe think it is. So what happens to Tenochtitlan? Well, Cortez burns it to the ground, and then he comes back, and then he dams off the river so the lake disappears. And then for good measure, he builds a new city on top of the ashes. That city's name? Mexico City. Where does the name Mexico come from? The Aztec called themselves, well, not the Aztec at all, that was a European invention. The Aztec called themselves the Mexica. They're the Mexica tribe. And that sound is translated into European. The thing is, there are sounds that don't exist in English languages, they exist in foreign languages. It's like the sh sound, we have to take two letters and combine them. So instead of writing it as H, it's written as X. So, Mexica, M-E-X-I-C-A. Mexica, Mexico. There you go. That's where that comes from. Mexico is the land of the Aztec. So, moving on. Let's talk about Pizarro. Francisco Pizarro was likewise driven to conquer because, he wanted some of this money too. Because the thing about the conquistadors is any of the money they find, they get to keep some for themselves. So you can become really rich by doing this. So he wants the same thing. So the area he decides to conquer is around modern-day Peru. And he runs into a group called the Inca. Now, the emperor of the Inca was a dude named Atahualpa, and he had just fought his brother in a civil war. This civil war ended with Atahualpa on the throne, but weakened. So Pizarro sees him, goes, yep, mine now, yoink, and runs off with the emperor. He then offers to ransom him back to his people. His price he's asking for is a big room filled with gold. Now let's just think about this for a second. Let's say that we were ransoming Atahualpa and we said we want a big room filled with gold. Did you say this room's big? Is that one right now? Let's just say it is. Let's just say it's a big room, okay? How much money is this room worth? I actually did the numbers. Okay, so basically, your standard gold bar, like you think of when you think of a gold bar, is 7 inches by 3 inches by 5/8 inches tall. Okay? I guesstimate this room to be 30 by 30 by 20 tall. The number of gold bricks we can fit in there is a lot. So, how much is gold today? Well, gold today runs about $1,332 per ounce, right? So how many ounces are in one gold bar? 439. So how much money does all of this come out to be? $71,701,000,000 for one guy. Yes? Is that a lot of money? You got a little bit, but it's only like 12 times the American national deficit. So, that's fun. You guys never hear the expression, it will cost a king's ransom? When they're saying, like, how much is it going to cost? It's going to be expensive. Will it cost a king's ransom? That's what we're talking about. That's the king's ransom. It's a lot. So Atahualpa takes the money and he kills the king anyways and then destroys the whole empire because he's that kind of guy. So the same thing happens. The Inca region goes under control of the Spanish in 1537. Guys, need more time to write this down. I'll give you 10 seconds. And if you need any more time than that, you can always go online and check our handy-dandy YouTube channel for all the deliciousness. Okay, so here's a picture of allegedly Atahualpa being captured. Here's the thing, this is clearly a 19th century drawing. Why? Because the clothes and everything they're wearing are totally inaccurate. For instance, why are there a bunch of topless chicks around? Guys, do you know where the Inca live? Or lived, I should say? In the Andes Mountains. It's a bit chilly up there. They're not hanging around in leaf huts in the top of a mountain. Right? And unless you want certain parts of your anatomy to fall off, you're probably not running around so poorly dressed. This is clearly a sort of, well, they're native, so of course they're naked, right? It's how you see later on in the Victorian and later periods. The other thing is, why it's off as well, apparently this is a thing in a lot of art. You'll see this random depictions of them in top of And I actually asked my wife about this one time. She's got a background in art history, so I was like, I have no idea why this is screwed. She told me the reason was because it's really hard to paint shapes. But specifically, it's really hard to paint the faces of sexes. If you draw a face, most likely it's going to look like a dude's face. It's really hard to get the fine lines of women's features correct. So, how they take a shortcut around showing, hey, this is a woman, right? Oh, it's a woman. Really? That would be why. So a couple things about the Inca and the Aztec. They're both very advanced civilizations. First of all, what I mean by saying advanced, I'm not saying that they were flying around in spaceships or any kind of aliens nonsense, but rather that they had a lot of advantages that made them the masters of their territory. They had a very good understanding of history. And why that matters is because it tells you how to deal with crises. Whenever you're dealing with a situation such as there's no rain, which believe it or not happens a lot along the Yucatan. Furthermore, they had fairly advanced systems of mathematics for the era, much more advanced than the Europeans were during the Stone Age. And then lastly, in terms of astronomy, they were able to look at how the stars moved and predict things to a startling degree of accuracy. Their calendar was one of the most advanced that we'd ever encountered. In fact, the calendar we use today is pretty darn close to what their calendar was. Now, that brings us to the whole end of the world in 2012 nonsense. How do you guys remember that?
That was on my birthday.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Do you guys know why the people thought that?
Because the Aztec calendar is
Yeah. So let's talk about the Aztec calendar. Sorry guys, moving on. You can get this on YouTube. This is what it looked like. Okay? What do you notice about the calendar?
a circle.
Right, so what happens when you get in a circle? And you start over. The point of the circle is that it has no end or beginning point, yes? It goes through cycles. You just start over and over and over and over again. People did not know that about the calendar. Oops. We talked about human sacrifice. That's pretty much the gist of it. You rip out their heart, it goes off like a giant balloon. You know, because we know our bodies are filled with helium. And so when you die, it inflates your intestines and they go flying off. You should see it. It's really gross. Like they've got like dudes, like when they're doing, you know, when you're a mortician, you've got to strap the body down with nets and things like that because otherwise the body will go flying off. That's serious. No, that's totally a joke. That's not true at all. Don't believe anything like this stuff. No, I'm lying. That is not happening. This was a representation of the heart like being given to the gods. No. Although, and this is true. This is true. Technically speaking, when you decompose, you do release gases, and so bodies kind of like puff up, and so they can explode. So that is a problem. But they have ways of dealing with that. What's that? Yeah. So this is kind of summarizing those points we made a minute ago about why is it that the Aztecs were defeated despite them being a large empire and going into relatively small people. All right, I'll give you a few seconds to write all this stuff down. I'm going to go fill my water cup. That's what I'll do. And then I will we'll be back and we'll talk about guess where. There we go. This brings to mind the fact that being in my somewhat unique position, I can tell you guys stuff and like it's totally lies. Be like, okay, cool, yeah. True story, bro. All right, while you guys are doing this and finishing this, I want you to imagine a scenario, okay? There is an island in the Caribbean. You're like, yeah, there's several of those. There's a specific island. thought you said it was the Atlantic. No, no, not the Pacific. It's the Atlantic. Stop interrupting me. I'm sorry. There's an island, right? And here's the deal about this island, right? It grows these type of watermelons. Oh my God, you've never tried these. They're the best watermelons ever. I don't even care if you don't like watermelons. You will love these. Right? Stick with me, my story is better. So these watermelons are fantastic, and they're sold throughout the world for very high prices. This island can make whoever has it about $500,000 a year. Now, you can have it. You can go and live there right now, but there's certain priorities, certain things, right? There's a house on it that's actually really nice, about 400 square feet, 40,000 square feet. It's got everything you want, it's got internet access, it's great. But if you move there and get the island, you can only take one other person. Otherwise, no one else, you're not going to see it. You will not see the rest of your family again. Okay?
Wait, so is the picture?
It's a scenario, hypothetical situation. Okay, you can't see your family ever again. But you're going to make all this money, right? Now, eventually you can leave, and you couldn't go visit your family then. But once you leave, you don't get to come back. It's gone. All right? Now, there's one other problem with this area. It's also got dinosaurs on it. It's like Jurassic Park. And they will try to kill and eat you. Now, the area with this watermelons where they're growing, somebody else has built a fence around to keep them out. They will occasionally probably break free, and so you're going to have to fight them off and rebuild the fence and keep it, keep it straight. Got me? How you guys would be willing to do that? Go to this island and do all this?
Go to college.
No, right? Most of us are like, no. Okay, so those of you guys are saying, I want to go. Why? Why do you want to go? They're trying to eat you, dude. Oh. Yeah, you have to go. I mean, think about that. You're like, Pres reunion here 20 years. Whatever happened to that girl who was just back here? She was eaten by dinosaurs. Really? Really? That's great. And this is how we do it. Might be the monkey, sir. Fair enough. Otherwise, it's okay. Why'd you go? Anybody else who said they would go? Why do you think? Why would you go? Oh, you didn't? No. So you were really the only one because dinosaurs are awesome. Well done. I can see you living a dinosaur-free life. So, very good. I guess you could try. You're going to be like in Jurassic World, be like, it's cool, bro. They're like, oh, he's making signs. It's like a bunch of frat boys. They're like, There's a nest there. All right. The reason I wanted you to think about that is because when we talk about the settlement of North America, replace watermelons with free land and replace dinosaurs with Native Americans. And you essentially have the situation that colonists were facing. They had the potential to make a ton of money relative to their experiences. Keep in mind, most of the settlers of the colonies are farmers that do not own the land they work on. They work every day in order to make these crops come in, and when they harvest them, they have to give the vast majority to the person who owns the land. They don't even get half. So the potential of saying, hey, you get free land, you just can move in and bam, start your farm, that's a huge incentive. That's a chance not only to be successful, that's a chance to get rich. But the problem is, there's all these freaking natives. Now, we can talk all about the interaction between the white man and natives and all this kind of stuff. But one thing to understand about this is that natives were a wild card when it came to moving this area. As more and more colonists are coming over, they're taking more and more land from the natives. And the thing is, the natives don't really see people as being able to even own land. This would be like someone claiming in our society that I own the moon. It's whatever, dude. Because you own it, are you going to stop the light shining from it? How's that going to work? You're going to build a giant mirror? You know, stuff like that. It's seen as completely impossible. So whenever the colonists built these farmlands and basically walled them off, the natives would still go through it, and if the wall got in their way, they would just tear the wall down. And so the colonists would respond by shooting at them to drive them away, and of course that would cause the natives to come back and kill the entire family. And so then the colonists would respond in kind by going to the native village and murdering everyone, and you can see why things were a bit testy. So the situation is one of danger, but also great potential. So you have to kind of wrap your head around this and be like, these folks who are doing this, they were amazing people. I mean, because it's not like, I'm just going to go by myself, and if I die, oh well. They're taking their families. There's one chick I heard about, she went 7 months pregnant when she was in her 40s. And she had to walk something like 500 miles to get to where they were going. I mean, this is just like feats of endurance. It's like, what? Insanity. But they did it because it was the potential for a new, wonderful life. Literally the American dream. That's what we all hope for. Deep down, when you think about it, we hope for this potential that our lives are going to be amazing. We're going to have these opportunities in no other place you have these opportunities. Now, does that mean that everyone gets the opportunities? Not necessarily, but it can happen. Some interesting people in our history became just mind-bogglingly wealthy because they were at the right place, at the right time, with the right education, with the right amount of startup money, and took advantage of the situation. Bill Gates was one of these guys. He was a computer nerd who basically put together stuff in his basement and sold them and managed to create one of the largest computing companies in the world. Even a dude, I didn't realize this is dumb, but I know a lot about him for whatever reason. Charles R. Walgreen, the guy who founded Walgreens. Right? You wouldn't think like that's the American dream. Right? He's a drug company guy. But seriously, the dude ended up just moving willy-nilly to Chicago. As soon as he got there, he threw all of his money in a river. Or specifically, I think it was the Great Lake there, like Michigan. And basically said, well, now I got to work hard because I got nothing. And so he apprenticed himself to a pharmacist, ended up actually fighting in the Spanish-American War, got dysentery, or yellow fever, ended up not dying, which is kind of a rare thing, ended up starting up his own pharmacy business, ended up hanging out a lot in the pool halls, was playing pool with some dude and said, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to start my own business. Things like that. And the guy's like, okay, $5,000 check. Go ahead and get started. I want to see what you can do with it. Is it taking that money, building this giant pharmaceutical company that ends up, all around people's street corners and selling all kinds of nonsense? He ended up a multi-millionaire in his life, just because of odd circumstances, right? That's the kind of American dream people have, like, because it can happen to anyone at any time. It's like, so exciting, yes? So we can see why people are like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a colonist. No Indians. And this is the kind of situation we're in. So let's talk about who's going where and why and how and all that stuff. So let's talk about the French first. Why? Because people of France. How you guys knew that the French have the greatest military history record of any European nation? And you guys know they had one of the toughest militaries of anybody. Everybody was jealous as all get out of the French. That's because people made jokes about them surrendering, which is crap. It happened in one war because they were surrounded by the most bad, scary military of the time, the Nazi army, Wehrmacht. But we'll get to that later. At this point in time, the French are the tough guys of Europe. They are beating down everybody. And they're going to keep beating down everybody wherever they try, except in New France. And I'm going to tell you why. First, when the French colonists are coming, they're not actually wanting to settle there. they're going to build towns. For instance, they built Quebec, which is going to be the capital of New France. But it's really more of a trading post. Yeah, they've got some farms there, and yeah, they're supporting themselves, but they're really not making a nuisance of themselves, and that's really important. The natives get along with them because they act in a sort of mutually beneficial sort of scenario. The natives are trappers, are hunters. They bring fur to trade with the French, who are so excited about this fur because it's expensive. Think about this for a second. You guys know what a king looks like, right? A stereotypical king. They got the crown on their heads. They got that red cloak that's got like little white and black spotted stuff on the sides. You guys know what that is? That white and black? It's fur. If you were wealthy, you wore fur. This is true even really kind of today. Fur coats are really expensive, yeah? So fur is wealth. So you can make a ton of cash by selling furs. However, the French don't need to go do it themselves. Why work hard when you can work smart? Send the natives to go do it. They already know how to. They're great trappers. They'll come back with the furs. We'll give them stuff they want in exchange. We'll give them metalwork items. You know, a lot of these folks were, before the Europeans came, not metal workers. So you want to do sweet tomahawk? Check it. I got you. And pull up this tomahawk that's made with metal. They're like, oh, I gotta have you some of that. Here you go. And so they would trade, right? So it's mutually beneficial. So that means they have a really good interest together. Now later on, they ended up adding a territory to Louisiana because they beat the Spanish in the war. Louisiana was part of the Spanish area of North America. We don't think about that so much. Like we think of Spain and the Caribbean, but they were all the way up here. They had Mexico, parts of Texas, Florida, all this area really. And so Louisiana becomes French. Louisiana is going to be a really weird place for a lot of different reasons. Louisiana actually ends up going to control the Spanish and the French, then the English, and back to the French, then become American. So they're a city with an identity crisis. We'll get back to that in a bit. Let's move on to England. Now, unlike the French, the English totally want to settle here, but for a lot of different reasons. At first, they're like, we're going to get us some gold. Now, there's not any gold in North America. Oops. So that part of Pocahontas, totally true. The rest of it, wrong. So then they're like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, they end up finding that tobacco sells really, really well back home. People love this stuff. They can't stop smoking it. We should grow this. This will be a great way to make money. And cancer. Guys, people were seriously making tobacco. All over the world, really. But it was common even among, like, people you wouldn't expect to be smoking. Like, there are pictures of, like, you know, very attractive young ladies sitting there in their finest French fashions with a big old pipe sticking out of their mouth. I mean, we're talking one of the first things people did in the military, that they'd wake up, stretch their arms, light the pipes up. They were smoking constantly. They even had little tiny pipes called watch pipes they could put in a buttonhole, and they could use whenever they're on guard duty. We're talking people smoked like crazy, so it made them a lot of money. So this is where they had the introductions of cash crops, yeah? So then Plymouth and Charlestown, founded by two different religious organizations. Let's talk about kind of a really brief history of the English Civil War. So England fights the Civil War, and at the end of it, the Puritans end up in control of England. Now the Puritans, pretty much if it's fun, they think it's a sin. So I'm not even talking about stuff that we might be like, well, that's morally questionable. I'm talking like dancing, it's a sin. No dancing. Don't get down and do bad stuff. It's a sin. You'll go to hell. You want to go see a play? Go to hell. Going to a bar? Go to hell. You know what means you don't go to hell? Work. Working is good. You should work as much as possible. Hell, think about in our own culture how many expressions we have for being lazy is bad. I mean, calling someone lazy is an insult. You're putting them down, yeah? Have you guys ever heard the expression, idle hands are the devil's playthings? If you're not working, you're probably going to hell. So this work ethic sticks around. You guys know that America has the highest amount of hours worked for any country on earth, except for maybe ones that are developing nations where they, kind of don't have any workers' rights at all. But as far as the developed nations are concerned, we're number one. Our workers take the fewest sick days, take the fewest vacation days, we work ourselves to death. And that might not necessarily be a good thing, but that is very much part of our culture. So what happens? Well, the only reason that everyone tolerates the Puritans is because the leaders, Oliver Cromwell, who they love. But when Cromwell dies, pretty much everyone's tired and sick of the Puritans and kick him out. They end up kicking out the entire new system, and guess what? When King Charles II comes back into power, he's all like, hey guys, we're having a party! We're going to the theater! We are going to the bars! We are going to do some freaking dancing! And everyone's like, yay! Debauchery! And so the Puritans are like, grumble, grumble, form our own nation, grumble, grumble, and they end up coming across the Atlantic and setting up a colony where they can have religious freedom. Hence, we have an establishment and a precedent for religious tolerance. Now, that being said, that doesn't always go down, as you can kind of see by the way people interact in the nations about that. But that's the idea where it comes from, and so we have the English. Now, believe it or not, the Netherlands actually had their own colonies around the area of what we now know as New York. And the reason we know it now as New York is because here's where the Dutch are, here's England, here's France. England is settling, they're building farms, they're expanding. So they end up going to war with the Netherlands, defeating them, and basically taking over all of the former Dutch colonies. So everything in the Netherlands becomes New York and New England. So by that point, England and France are neighbors. Guess what's gonna happen? They go to war! And so this time, the French bring in their allies. You remember how I said that the French are going to lose in North America? Well, remember, they are not building up the same numbers that the English are. The English are growing and expanding. They got more and more people willing to fight, and not just British regulars. They also have colonists themselves, armed with their own weapons, fighting together, and acting as a well-organized militia. Now, this seems like a little weird concept to us, but the closest thing I can say is it's like a National Guard, except that it's mandatory. If you are of a certain age and gender, you are part of the militia. And for most guys, militia duty wasn't all that big a deal. Essentially, once every month for a few weeks, or for a week or so, a few days, I guess what I meant to say, you go drinking with your buddies and shoot guns in the woods, which is kind of an American pastime when you think about it. And so they're just going, whatever. Only every now and again, it's like, by the way, we're going to go fight a war. Okay, and off they go. And the militia are terribly unreliable because they're not professional soldiers. They start getting shot at, they're like, I'm done, I'm going home. They just leave. So the militia are unreliable. They're reliably unreliable, I should say. And so really it's a combination of all these things that means that France doesn't have the power it needs to withstand this, not to mention their king was an incompetent buffoon. Their king is so bad at his job, he ends up getting executed. In fact, he actually ends up losing France as a monarchy until the end of the age of Napoleon. So, King Louis, not the best king. This would be Louis XVI, by the by, not the 14th. Although, to be fair, 14th wasn't that great of a king either, but you can debate that at least. Hold on. That's it.
Oh, maybe
I was wondering when you guys were heading out for that. I don't know if it's a good Lexington thing, but
No, please.
that's, we all know you're going to be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I have no doubt. You know why? And you know what? She's going to be thinking about that when she's on top of a pyramid or something like that. And you're like, Alright, the Native Americans. How do they interact with various Europeans? Well, the Dutch and the French pretty good, as I said. They fight the English tooth and nail. And I'm out of time. Oh. You guys can catch the rest of this on YouTube. Peace out, y'all. I know you're disappointed. You didn't get to finish talking about America, but don't worry. We'll talk about it again.